evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth. In case you missed our first show, had Roy Castellan from the Sports Philanthropy Network. He's everything that he stands for: good people, good feel, good stories. So if you all have a chance to watch that show on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, please don't miss it. Roy has been a good friend of mine, and anybody that understands about fundraising, philanthropy, this is unbelievable. Let me go back to the crew. Obviously, the title says it all. Well, Pete Rose finally being in the Hall of Fame. I have a lot of other great stuff as well. And, Brian Pettit, I'm going to put his chats up in a moment. He's going to be a rising star, everybody. Mark, Eric, Trent, George. This guy, I just met him about a week ago. And if there's ever a team player that belongs in our network, don't be surprised to see Brian coming on this show as well as other. Brian, we're going to get to your comments in a moment. Let me get to the crew. All right, Mark Meriday, glad to have you on, partner.
Thank you, my friend Scott. It's great to be back. Good to see everybody, especially my man George. I've missed you, my friend.
And I'll just point out great work by Mark and Trent for being on the Sports Exchange on Thursday. We had a dynamite show with Mike Santos. We really did, as we kicked off a new era with hockey. At least now I know that Trent Clark could be an occasional fill-in on Thursday, because I didn't know he knew as much about hockey as he did. But boy, did Trent put on a good show. And with that said, I've talked about Trent. Let's go ahead and bring him back. He's my designated co-host on the show. Welcome back, Trent.
Motor City Madmouth, how are you, buddy? It's great to be back. George, great to see you back. I really enjoyed the show with Mike Silky Santos and the Barber. And, of course, we had the Bulldog on there, too.
Oh, that dog was awesome.
Unbelievable, yeah. Steve Ballesteri was on there, George. I'm telling you, you were covering the Red Wings in Columbus. But, we thought about you. Had a pretty powerful crew that night. All right, we'll transition over to George Eichhorn.
Well, good to be back, guys. Great seeing you. Let's play some baseball, man. We're all ready for this.
And I have my young stud, Eric Katz. This guy is on the rise. Watch out for this guy. He's doing some unbelievable stuff.
Thank you, Scott. It's good to have you back, George, as well.
Thank you.
Before I get to Pete Rose, I have no choice, thanks to Brian Pettit, to put these comments up, because this one comes really close to me, about Sammy Sosa. I worked with him with the Gastonia Rangers in 1987. Let's go ahead and put it up there, Can. Sosa has never admitted to steroid use, only for past mistakes, apologizing to the Cubs in December, and the club welcomed him back into the organization. He was elected into their Hall of Fame in January, no doubt about that. Sammy Sosa wearing a Chicago Cubs uniform for the first time in 21 years. This happened Saturday. Let me talk about this, and then we're going to go into Pete Rose. I had a great time working with Sammy in 1987 when he was a young pup at the Gastonia Rangers, and I knew this kid had some impressive skills. Did he need the PEDs? No. One thing, I will say this about Sammy, and you guys can talk about this as well, between him and Mark McGwire, when he had the 1994 baseball strike, him and Mark McGwire saved the sport, because that was an all-time low in terms of baseball. He had Cal Ripken's consecutive game streak, but that home run chase between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire was classic. So thanks for bringing it up, Brian. Gastonia Rangers, 1987. And on that particular team, I saw about 10, 12 people make it to the bigs, but without question, Sammy Sosa was the biggest one. So I'm going to turn it over to Trent. What are your thoughts about Sammy Sosa?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I question, the Sammy Sosa career. Like, of course, he's such a great player. I'll tell you the other thing about steroids is that no matter how much people take, it didn't make everybody a great player. There's a lot of people who took steroids that still weren't good players. So, Sammy Sosa was an absolute great baseball enthusiast. He was great for the game. 1998 will never be forgotten. And by the way, this guy's sportsmanship and work with McGwire, this guy comes in a pretty close second, and just a great humanitarian for the game. So it's the other stuff off field and everything else, so be it. But for the game, Sammy was great.
George?
Yeah, Scott, of course, I've talked to you and known you for 45 years, and I know that was really a high point, one of your high points of being part of the Gastonia Rangers, because you and I have had this conversation many times over the years. Right. Sammy, I agree with you, Trent. He's a class individual. I mean, I know we put Roberto Clemente on the highest pedestal we can for Latin American players, and he deserves it. Don't get me wrong. But you're right, Trent. Sammy cared for the community. He connected with the community, with the kids. He did a lot behind the scenes. I feel bad that he got caught up in that. I really do, because I think he would have been obviously a surefire Hall of Famer without all this. But I am glad. I'm glad that Brian Pettit brought that up, that Sammy was welcome back. He gave an apology to the Cubs, apparently, and now things are at least better from that organizational standpoint. Good guy, real good guy, Scott. I always liked and admired his ability, but even as a player, but more so as a man, a baseball man.
Well, one of my favorite stories will be, and George knows it as well as anybody, is I was covering the Cubs and Florida Marlins at the time over at Joe Robbie Stadium, and the PR lady for the Cubs wouldn't give me a one-on-one interview. So you know what I did? I pulled a fast one. Said, "Hey, Sammy, remember me?" And I'm on the field. He gives me this little wide Sammy Sosa smile that would go all the way from Miami all the way to Anchorage. So I told the woman, "Don't you believe me now?" Yeah, she did. And what subsequently happened, I got my one-on-one interview the next day. Beautiful story. And thanks for Brian for bringing it up. I really, really do, because this wasn't a topic we came up with, but this guy here brought it up and made it even more interesting, because it has a direct tie to what we're doing tonight. I want to reemphasize what I'm going to say again. Brian Pettit will be on any of our shows here at a future date. I'm looking forward to all you guys meeting him. And he'll also be on Ralph Williams' show on Saturday, Sports Rep, that I'm actually behind and overseeing that show on Saturdays on Sports Wrap. And George and I know about where the Sports Wrap name came out. I'm not going to get into more specifics, but let me turn it over to Eric. What are your thoughts about Sammy Sosa?
I grew up in Chicago. I was growing up in Chicago when Sammy Sosa was in his heyday. So, everywhere you walked in the city, everywhere you walked in the city, Sammy Sosa was everywhere. Actually, you couldn't even turn on the TV without seeing him, because, actually I'd probably say the documentary Long Gone Summer does a great job about illustrating what the home run, about everything surrounding the home run derby between him and McGwire at that point in time. And I remember, I think one of my first baseball games was a Cubs game, and I think Sammy did play. I'm pretty sure he did. I've tried looking it up, but I just can't find it. But Sammy was great for baseball. He was entertaining. He loved the media, and the media loved him. Actually, they said you could probably put a ham sandwich next to Sosa, and if it talked to him, Sammy Sosa would probably talk back. And he might actually, the ham sandwich might actually interview him too. So, he was like, he was great for Chicago, was a big part of their resurgence during their initial resurgence during the early 2000s. He was a big part of some of their teams that were successful during that time. And you could say what you want about the end there in Chicago and the end of his baseball career. But, no one was better for baseball, both on and off the field. He's still very much loved in Chicago. I thought Tom Ricketts was an idiot for inserting himself into that when he was just another fan at that point in time when all that was going on. Because remember, Ricketts had season tickets and owned and worked in Chicago when all that was going on. But I thought it was stupid to keep him out, because, to be honest with you, there has been no love lost. The city still loves him, regardless of how it went, regardless of how it ended. When he came back to the Cubs convention, that place was roaring. But you could say what you will about steroids and all that, but to be truthful, I think baseball benefited at that point in time, and I will forever stand by it that when the money went dry is when Bud Selig found religion.
Funny. I can't top that one. Just quit while you're ahead there, because we got other topics there. You're the best. I'm not going to even try, but I'll tell you one thing: at Wrigley Field, they had 50,000 seat capacity. They fill it up with Sammy, whacking them out into the ivy.
I was at the game when he hit the apartment building.
Oh yeah.
It was that was back when they had the brick wall behind home plate. The bullpens were out on the baselines. Now they moved them in. They moved them inside now, and the brick wall is no longer. And the apartment buildings now, you no longer can watch the games for free like you used to. the Ricketts family owns them now, and this. Although that side of Chicago has become a lot nicer, though, but you could probably Sammy Sosa gave reason to actually go to that part of Chicago at that point in time.
All right, we got to go to the barber before Eric comes up with something else, and we all start laughing. Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate you bringing me around. Are we talking Sammy Sosa nowadays, who looks more like Michael Jackson at the end of his career, or are we talking Sammy from back in the day, who was clobbering balls? You know what, Eric? I'm going to go one step further with what you said. I think he's beloved in baseball. I don't think anybody would have had a problem with him getting the Hall of Fame. I don't. I think you are absolutely correct. Those guys, him and McGuire, saved baseball, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
And to a certain extent, I know Scott's not going to like this. Barry Bonds, they brought the long ball back in. They made people watch because of that. And I love Sosa as a kid watching him play ball. And you're right. He always had a smile on his face. He loved playing baseball. It's a kid's game, and he embraced it just like that the whole way through his career. And you can't ask for more than that. I can only imagine how much those guys would make today based on how well they hit back then. Because now you make a boatload of money hitting 250. And those guys didn't just hit home runs. They hit close to 300, 280. And just their paychecks would just be astronomical. So yeah, that's my piece on Sammy. I mean, I think he is beloved in baseball, not just in Chicago.
Mark, let me set the record straight here. It's not that I don't like Barry Bonds, but what went ahead and caused him a lot of issues with the Hall of Fame was he treated the media poorly.
Yeah.
You guys mentioned it to begin with. I had an opportunity with the Marlins, and I saw the Marlins and the Giants, and we all know about Pudge Rodriguez making that incredible saving play at the home plate. And I didn't want to even talk to Barry Bonds because he treated the media horribly. He really did. And I think if you were to talk to Barry Bonds these days and ask, what would you do differently? Would you go out there and treat the media better? Barry would say, yeah, I wish I did. Because the one thing about getting the Hall of Fame is you don't bite the hand that feeds you. So, no, I have no problem with what you said, Mark. Well, let's face the reality. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. And that's what, unfortunately, Barry Bonds did with the media. We're the ones going to vote you in.
I don't even think he would acknowledge it today. He doesn't really come across as a guy who still feels any remorse towards the way he treated people.
No, that's not true. Barry has come out and said how much he was an idiot back then. So to me, that's plenty of remorse, and he's actually a lot more reflective now than he's ever been.
Well, they generally are after their careers are over. Let's face it, his numbers in terms of Hall of Fame numbers are nothing to be proud of. And he would have gotten in if he had treated. Will it ever come down to the Veterans Committee bringing him? I don't know. That'll be our lead into the main topic. But because Brian brought up Sammy Sosa, and to me, it's a topic that hits closer to home because I work with Sammy, and I brought up the situation with the Cubbies and the Florida Marlins. That's a different situation. But sometimes topics fall into our laps that work out, make sense. And Brian Pettit just hit a bullseye with this comment. So let's move on to the main topic of the night. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you big time, brother. Rob Manfred is considering the family's request to remove Pete Rose's ban. So here's the thing. Eric touched on it a little bit earlier about Bud Selig. I'm going to let you talk about this one first, Eric, and we're going to keep this pretty basic. Does Pete Rose finally get into the Hall of Fame? Because we could do a 1-hour show on this, and I have a lot of other topics to get to. So we'll keep it simple. What do you think, Eric?
Well, they were never going to give it to him while he was alive because they didn't want to give him that satisfaction that he ultimately beat baseball. So baseball is never going to do that. It's not the first time they've considered reinstating him. But here's the thing, though: if they reinstate Pete Rose, they're potentially opening up a Pandora's box with Joe Jackson, the Black Sox, and all that. So so it's a very dangerous predicament that baseball is trending under. I'm sure, hopefully, if Rob Manfred's using his head, which he very rarely ever does, I'm sure it's something that he's hopefully thinking about because for better or worse, we can say what we want about Pete Rose and his moral values and things like that, even though he's very morally bankrupt. For for better or worse, he is forever connected in baseball. No one's going to break the hits record. No one's probably going to play for as long and play as well as Pete Rose did. And, because part of it too is, these guys don't play every day like Pete Rose did for the longest time. And, now obviously 4,000 hits is just, I think 3,000 hits nowadays is a real accomplishment, because now players don't play as often as they used to. So it makes getting to those records, very hard. And, and I also think that in baseball now, records just aren't as valued as much as, aside from when Aaron Judge hit 62 home runs. But I think, the thing with Pete Rose is, for better or worse, when you think of baseball, you think of Pete Rose, and that's just the way it is, considering how great of a player he was, and how, and from what I've heard about Pete Rose is, unlike Barry Bonds, he was actually very good to the media. And I just think that, now that he's dead, baseball was never going to do it while he was alive, because they didn't want him. Right. They didn't, because then that would signify that Pete Rose is bigger than baseball, which, in a sense he is, but Major League Baseball was never going to ever make that a reality. But now that he's gone, I think that, it's worthwhile considering. But keep in mind, though, you're setting a dangerous precedent, because there are plenty of people, great players, who were banned in the past, that you're going to have to look at their descendants square in the eye and say, and answer to why him but not us.
Well, I'm going to turn over to Mark, because Mark and I met in person over at the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. So I knew that Eric was going to give us a Catsy version of this thing, and he lived up to expectations, as he always does. That's the one thing you've missed, George, being on the last few weeks, is we let Catsy look like Barry Sanders on it. We just let this guy run, and who cares? I mean, he's that good. But anyways, Mark, I guess the question I have for you is this. Will we see Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame? And you and I want to get there again, see a plaque of him.
I definitely think that Eric has a valid point in terms of opening up Pandora's box with other guys. But I think Pete Rose deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He was the face of the game for years and years, love him or hate him. He was the hardest working guy on the field, no matter who he played for, whether it was Philly, Cincinnati, it didn't matter. He was the hardest working guy on the field. He carried himself with a sense of arrogance on the field, yet, like you said, he was good to the media, and that's really important from that perspective. His numbers are more than worthwhile being in the Hall of Fame. And I don't think we should be judging a guy by anything other than, do their numbers dictate them getting in the Hall of Fame, because that's what most of the other sports do. It's all about what their performance was as a player, not the character piece. And I get the character piece, like betting on your own team. Yeah, I get that, but he served his price.
Okay, Katie, come on the show for a moment. You can read the comments, because Mark talked about numbers. So why don't you relay everybody, and then we're going to turn over to Trent, and then we're going to turn over to George, and I'll have a couple basic stuff. Go ahead, Ken.
So Pete Rose is the only player to play at least 500 games at 5 different positions. At first base, he played 939 games, left field 671, third base 634, second base 628, right field 595 games. Wow.
Great stuff. But that's that turnover to Clarkie. What do you think about Pete Rose? Is he getting in? Mute button will not work because I didn't take sign language. But if
I love that stat from Candy. I mean, that's incredible. Like even Easy Spezia would be impressed with that, with those positions. 5 positions. I don't even remember Pete Rose ever playing second base, by the way. Like, I don't know where that was in his career, but I don't even remember that. For me, I think I agree with Catsy and the Barber. I agree with the concerns. I do wonder, like, if they reinstate him, does the media vote him in still, or do they still blackball him off a vote? Like, has he actually had the option to vote or never been eligible?
No, he goes to Veterans Committee, is what'll happen there. I think his window of opportunity is over. It'll be up to the Veterans Committee, but that's a great question. Excellent question, Clarkie. Appreciate it.
I would hate to see, because, again, I agree with the Barber that it's all merit. I mean, by the way, we also know there's also some well-known cheaters in that hall, by the way, like well-known. And so for me, I mean, we're trying to play judge and jury here on this guy. By far, this guy was worth the price of admission. He's iconic. I think it'd be the biggest slap in the face if they reinstated him and then they didn't vote him in.
George.
Well, I've always admired Pete. Of course I have. He broke my guy's record, which is Ty Cobb's record way back in the day. But Pete Rose, yeah, I think he deserves a shot at the Hall of Fame. And I agree that it's not going to be by the writers, though. It would be by, like Scott mentioned, the select committee that's reviewing all these different eras, these different baseball eras. Yes, Katsy?
I was going to say, though, like you're seeing now with the writers, now that the old hag writers are finally kind of starting to kind of gradually trickle away from the committee, from the voting committee. You're starting to see a gradual uptick in guys who were, either used or linked to steroids. Like I've noticed A-Rod's starting to get a little uptick there, even though he'll never get in. You're starting to see guys who in some cases were morally out of bounds start to get an uptick in votes. Heck, the guys in the Hall of Fame now, like Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle, weren't exactly morally bound people.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And you are right. I mean, the younger voters are that are eligible to vote. I mean, and they have strict guidelines, as you know. I was never a member of the Baseball Writers Association of America, but I respect them. I've respected all of them and the local chapters they all have. But let's get back to Rose. Hey, listen, Sparky Anderson, who I hold up very, very high in my respect for men of this game. And you know this, Trent. This man, I mean, talk about squeaky clean, went to church and all this, but he was a mentor to Pete Rose. Now, where Pete failed had nothing to do with Sparky. But I'm just saying that when Sparky was there, those guys were all held in high esteem. And, obviously things changed. Rose went to the bad side, if you will, the evil side, whatever you want to call it. But you are right. You are right, Eric. I mean, if they start opening up for one, then they got to take in consideration Shoeless Joe Jackson and the Black Sox and other ones. Denny McClain is another one. Denny McClain got involved with the mob, supposedly, and he also got involved with fooling around with his company's pension plan. Yeah, drugs, holding a gun. We all know that. Scott and I lived through that in Detroit. Denny McClain never got any support from the Hall of Fame. So there's another one you could add to the list, but I'm not voting for him. But I would vote for Pete Rose, Scott.
All right, I'm going to go out there and put Candy's. All right, who's going to say something?
Candy?
I was going to say, even so, like with Denny McClain, like there was after he had the 2 seasons where he had 31 and 24 wins, aside from before he even like got in trouble, his career, aside from those few years, it really was kind of like a Roger Maris career where you had those 3 or 4 or 5 great years sandwiched in between years where he was just average. I mean, even if Denny didn't get in trouble, let's just say he didn't get in trouble, I don't think he would get into the Hall of Fame. And you also have to keep in mind too that he was also, it goes back to the era he played in. He was playing against the likes of Bob Gibson, who was probably the premier pitcher in baseball up to that point, and it was like, there were a bunch of other pitchers who were way better than Denny McClain up to that point. Yes, he's the last 31 game winner, but it's like a Roger Maris career. He sets the home run record and whatever, wins a couple MVP awards along the way, but the rest of the time he's just average to mediocre.
Well, let me say this. Pete Rose is going to get in the Hall of Fame. Eric nailed it right on the head. Now that he's gone, deceased, he's getting in. He did not help his case at all when you're doing a book signing the week of Hall of Fame induction. If you're looking to find a way to show remorse, that wasn't the way to do it. Bud Selig and every commissioner involved didn't really look at him too positively. So I think he gets in. George, why do you bring up Denny McClain on this show? Really? Seriously? Really? Oh, by the way, that'll be my new hat coming out hopefully in a few weeks that I'll be wearing on the show so I can save them and everybody can wear it on top of the head. If anybody belongs in the Hall of Fame, you can tell Dom Gages, Mickey Loans belongs in the Hall of Fame, but that's our topic for another day. Mickey Lolich does. Let's not talk about what Eric says. 131 game season doesn't put you in Cooperstown. There are a lot of people that belong in Cooperstown. Danny McLean isn't one of those. However, nobody will ever go ahead and win 31 games a year. But Pete, unfortunately, denied himself an opportunity to come in for all the wrong reasons. Katie, back on the show. We'll let you go ahead and fill out your stats here, because if nobody does better with the crack statistician than Candy, and then while you're on after that, Candy, you're going to do a station break. Have a lot of great topics to get to, but we knew that these were definitely going to be some strong topics. And thanks to Brian Pettit for writing another one as our unofficial guest tonight. Go ahead, Ken.
Rose was a switch hitter and is MLB's all-time leader in hits, 4,256 games played, 3,562 at bats, 14,053 singles, 3,215 and outs, 10,328.
Okay, Eddie Prather brings up some interesting. Glad to have you back on, Eddie. Loved having you on. Talk about Rose Bonds. All right, let me go out there and throw this as well. Then we'll put Candy back on for the station break, because you might want to hear this too. Roger Clemens would be an interesting guy to get in. Whether he doesn't or not, I don't know. Putting it out there for Eddie. I see a guy nodding his head east and west. So, all right, Trent, what are your thoughts about Roger Clemens?
No, thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you on Roger the Dodger. He no. Just no.
Okay. Good enough. Anybody else real quick? Then we go to the station break.
Yeah. Quick. Yes, Rogers for me. I mean, no one owned the 80s and the 90s, and no one owned 3 different decades pitching.
George, quick.
Yeah, I would put him in.
Mark?
Yeah, he's in for me.
He's in for me. Candy, station break.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share us with all your friends and family. The South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword is written by George Eichhorn. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. The book talks about Scott's 40-plus years in the media business and how it has changed over the years. On our website, there is a plethora of other great content, so go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, you just never know what we're going to be talking about. And we throw a splash of hockey in on Thursday nights as well. If you want to advertise, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you want to be a guest or have show ideas, you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to the show.
All right, quick comments in the chat room. We'll move on. I have another big heavyweight. So Bonds and Clemens were both Hall of Famers without roids. Okay, just putting them up. Nobody has to come on and everything. Sosa McGuire needed roids to have success. Well, everybody's entitled to their opinion. We'll leave it at that. I think Pete Rose should be in Hall of Fame. He gave his life and did a lot for baseball. And Cyberowski tuning in from the sauna. What's going on? I also want to put up an interesting comment that Brian put on there. This is really interesting, and I definitely have to get that one up. And that's this. He talks about that he never saw a live baseball game. Candy, let's see if we can dig that one up. This is pretty interesting. Yeah, there you go. Well, but that just shows you in this particular situation that it's a family game, and there's no question about that. So, all right. So, yeah, I like bringing up all these types of points. I think they're relevant. There's no Major League Baseball in the Carolinas, which is where Brian is from. So I can appreciate that. Probably the closest thing you would have to it would be Atlanta, but good. It's worth mentioning. So, Cyberowski question to the panel: do you think sitting in the sauna is a good tool to help MLB players recover? You know what? That's a very interesting question. So we're going to lead off with Trent, because obviously you worked in a clubhouse. So what do you think?
Love the infrared sauna. In fact, the infrared sauna can produce a lot of blood flow into the body, and it can reduce the lactic acid. We used to have pitchers come out after they started and built a bunch of lactic acid in their body over 7-8 innings. And we take them out and ride them on a bike, recumbent, let them work that body through. Now you could do it easily with a infrared sauna. So in fact, it'd be easier, less trauma to the body, and I'd prefer it. So yeah, I think the sauna has a major place, and I'm sure clubs are using it today.
You know, Cyberuski, you come up with some interesting questions in the past. This is your best one ever. If I were you, I'd watch this again and realize I'm giving you a complete thumbs up for that one. That's an excellent question that doesn't really been asked a lot. And Trent Clark just gave you a thumbs up. Real quick around here. Again, I have other topics I want to get to, but this Cyberuski really hit the jackpot on this. George, real quick.
Well, I would defer to my experts, and such as Trent and our dear friend Kevin Rand and Jim Schmeichel in Detroit. I mean, these are guys that have been around the locker room a long, long time. But I will tell you this, that if it's worth it, I would try it. If I was there playing that game and it's so intense and so strenuous at certain times, I would like a good sauna, you betcha. And I'm sure it would be relief for not only baseball, but most athletes as well.
Hey, Cyberuski, let me give you some good advice. Share this with Josh and the guys. They'll be impressed with it you just put in here tonight. That was the time of my question, and you're welcome for sure. So with that said, okay, I can tell you right now, Eric, what are your thoughts?
I assure you, from being around clubhouses of minor league clubs, I assure you they are there. The clubhouse has become kind of a more or less a loungy kind of area too, especially for the home team. Again, these guys, particularly pitchers, they go out there and it's really not the position itself is really not healthy on the body. They're doing one thing over 1,000 times over the course of an entire season. That I'm sure they have all sorts of the latest and greatest medical advice and doctors and things like that to get these guys back working for their next start. And I'm sure some sauna. I'm sure the sauna is part of that equation.
You know, it's funny how you mentioned Kevin Rand. I'll turn it back to you, Clarky. I did text him a little bit, hoping to get him on a future show. He's been in Tokyo trying to work with those people out there. He does that every spring. So that's something on my list. George, thanks a lot for bringing it up. You just saved me a reminder. I need it. Now all you have to do is follow it up with a text message, and that'll help me do it a little further. All right, Clark, you go back to you.
Yeah, and he brought up Jim Schmeichel, who might have like 45 years in baseball, by the way.
Yeah.
And then in addition, by the way, Toledo guy, thank you very much. And then also Brett Crane. Want to give him a shout out today. Brett Crane, visiting clubhouse guy for the Angels. Birthday today. Happy birthday, Brett Crane. And then also he had some great pictures today of the Angels' new player development center. Incredible, great strength and conditioning. And there you go, Cyberuski. Saunas included in the new player development center.
Okay. All right, let's go to the chat room real quick before I turn over to the barber. Rose should be in Cooperstown, one scandal, and the MLB forgot about 10 players all the time. No debating that. I think he's going to get in. Unfortunately, like Eric alluded to earlier in the show, it'll be posthumously. All right, Mark, we'll talk about sauna. Then I have another big topic I want to get to, but I feel I have a responsibility to make sure that everybody in the chat is acknowledged, especially when they're sending out some great comments. They're definitely getting up. That room has always been my top priority. All right, Mark, talk about it, and then we have another big topic.
I think you need a plethora of different opportunities to heal your body. The sauna, the ice bath, the massage, anything and everything. The stimulation with the TENS machines, whatever it takes. Those guys need to go through a complete regimen, and I know Trent knows that. So that would definitely be part of what I would have there, and obviously it's there, and it's probably been there for years.
I'll tell you what.
It's also why Clemens took steroids. He took steroids to recover. It's a lot of stress on his body, and he was getting aged out, and he's taking it for recovery. And by the way, as long as we're talking about character, I think he committed perjury in front of Congress, right? So, if we got that going for us, we might want to consider that if we're going to talk about him in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I wish I had a sauna. My 62-year-old body needs it every second of the day in order to keep this bad boy going, but we're finding a way, thanks to Candy Evelyn's help, to stay on track. I'll tell you, she's an MVP in more ways than one. Not only does she go well with her she takes on so many roles. This woman, she goes out there and handles the website. She's become a nurse, whether she wanted to or not, but she obviously has taken on. She's anything but a one-trick pony. Between what she does with her day job as a broadcaster, the website, and a nurse, go for it. All right, let's get to the next topic. Okay, yeah, a lot of people can understand where you're coming with Rafael Palmeiro, but we'll keep it rolling. So ESPN wanted to slash, get this, MLB's annual right payment from 550 million to 200 million. Result, MLB opted out. So I'm going to make this a really easy question for everybody because I know we all have a comment on it. Where do you think MLB should go next in terms of do the subtraction? ESPN gone. Where do they go next? We could spend an entire show on this. That's how much stuff we have. And with my group here today, we're going to start off with you, Mark. Where do they go next with ESPN out?
I just read today that they're talking with Netflix, Amazon, and I can't remember who the third one was, but I don't think they should go down the same avenue as football. I think football lost a lot of paid subscriptions because of the direction they went. Major League Baseball needs to make themselves they need to make themselves be visible all the time. Like back in the day when you used to be able to turn on ABC and watch Monday Night Baseball and things like that. I think to bring the game back, it's going to take a strong effort to get a network that is going to work with them and not against them. ESPN to me is all about the NBA. Like they pick up the rights to the NHL, and you rarely hear stuff about the NHL. You know, yeah, they show the games, but most of them are on ESPN Plus. I thought it was a great move by Major League Baseball to dump ESPN. So at this point, I would love to see them go with more of a major network that's going to put them out there and make them accessible. Kids want to see Ohtani play. Kids want to see the best players in the game play, and their parents don't always buy them the ticket or anything like that. So, you know, find yourself a network that's gonna have multiple stations and be able to appeal to the masses.
All right, when we go to Yankees Jazz, if you've subscribed to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, we thank you very much. If you haven't, please do so because we have a lot of great shows in addition to what we have tonight. But we'll give you our 2025 World Series take. But remind me later in the show, and then we'll use that as a wrap-up topic. So Yankees, number 1, Jazz 13, we appreciate you big time. We're going to go through the national network scenarios. In fact, we might actually go ahead and incorporate that after this one because Eric's going to have a Yankees topic in the first place a little bit shortly. I'll insert that as well. Eric, briefly, where should they go?
I mean, the NFL doesn't need to work to get fans. Really, they could afford to go ahead and go to the streaming rights only because for better or worse, like everybody, the NFL is the most popular sports league in America. Let's just call it like it is. I mean, the NFL doesn't need to be out there. The NFL doesn't need to do what baseball has to do, which is constantly sell itself. The NFL doesn't have to sell itself because it's such a powerful brand that they could afford to go down the route of having it be a streaming and people got to pay to watch it. You know, the NFL can do that. Baseball can't do that because it is not nearly what the NFL has become. Now, do I believe baseball it can, with the way the NBA is going these days, do I believe it can step on the NBA this year? Absolutely. But leaving ESPN, I think, is a good thing. To be truthful, their coverage of baseball has been shrinking every year. And Baseball Tonight used to be an entire show. Now it's only a segment, maybe a 5-10 minute segment on SportsCenter. And now you got guys who on the talk shows on ESPN, who aren't even qualified to be talking baseball, like Stephen A. Smith, for example, who doesn't know a thing about baseball. And and same with the other guys, those football stars who are having their own talk shows now talking baseball when they're not even qualified to talk about the sport. When they wouldn't even be able to hit a wiffle ball. I think it's going to be great. I think it's great. Am I sad to see it end? Absolutely, because I remember when I was a kid sneaking downstairs to go listen to Joe Morgan and John Miller every chance I got at night. And but I think that in terms of where they should go, I don't think they should do streaming because really that's not a great way to sell yourself to the general public. I think that maybe they can expand on their Fox and TBS coverage, maybe invest more in MLB Network, which has been terrific since the launch. Like always having, it's the, you could probably argue it's the you could argue they got their inspiration from the Yes Network, which before the Nets kind of bought into that, they would do classic Yankee games whenever the Yankees weren't playing, interview shows and things like that. It was primarily Yankees up until probably like the early 2000s when the Nets decided to broadcast on it. But I think the next thing to go is just expand on what you already have with Fox and TBS. And, Fox has been great for the World Series and things like that. They got a terrific panel of players. I'd probably say it's better than it's equal to what the NBA has with almost equal to what the NBA has with Shaq and Ernie and all of them. And I think that if you expand on that, I think the baseball will be satisfied with what they'll have with for a show.
Fair enough. Okay, Trent.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's alarming, and I think Barber hit on it. I don't think kids are watching. I don't think kids are interested. I coached a 13U Little League team, travel team last year. They don't even watch the games. They're not learning, watching the big players do their thing. They want to watch Banana Ball and all the entertaining stuff. They want to watch YouTube for 8 minutes, and they want to watch the long ball or some crazy exercise video of how to hit, facing backwards. I mean, it's bonkers. The fundamentals are gone, and the actual understanding of what's going on in the game and really seeing it as the chess game that it really is, it's too deep for kids, man. This is back to idiocracy. We've gone very surfacey, and that game is not surfacey. So it's going to be a struggle. And look how much they've done. Look how much they've done for TV to try to make it more interesting, and they just continue to lose viewership. And it's not helping that we ran all these analytics and we had to do hire all these baseball numbers analysts only to drop the average batting average by 40 points and have the most boring game in crap baseball I've ever seen. That's my take.
George?
Well, I'm sure that the streaming is going to be a big part of their solution. I'm sorry to see ESPN be dropped also. I really look forward to the ESPN coverage, especially back in the day when there wasn't as much competition. But, now they got hockey too on ESPN. So, yeah, baseball's been relegated to a smaller spot. But my point is this. If NFL can have Fox, CBS, NBC, and ABC/ESPN, doggone it, baseball could do better than just Fox and TNT. I think there should be another network involved. They're always signing. They're always changing networks. The NBA, I heard, is going back to NBC. Well, maybe CBS should take a look at baseball and do that. Let's have a little bit of competition here among these major networks to try to get the game we love. Whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. But I don't blame either party in this situation. I mean, there were some bad things said and the bad things that were happening between these two partners, MLB and ESPN. But I would rather see one of the major four networks get involved in it besides Fox.
All right, let me take it from here. Everybody makes good points. Eric is right. The major reason why this situation is happening is not only because of monetary decline, but indeed ESPN, take away baseball tonight, declining coverage. I get it. Now here's my take. And I put Eddie Prather's up there, Candy. Now I'm going to really elaborate on what Eddie put up there. NBC, bring it back there. I don't care about Sunday night baseball anymore. If you have to put it on Friday night baseball. Sunday night baseball is good up until the NFL starts. NBC is where it belongs. It did great many years ago. Bring it back, period. I'll be the shortest response. I don't mind the longer answers tonight because let's face it, of all the top shows we've had, we have some really, really strong topics tonight. And I expect there to be a lot more opinions on this show. And I have no doubt about everybody expressing it. But to me, this is an absolute easy thing on the planet. NBC deserves it. CBS, yes. Eliminate Sunday night baseball during the fall. I don't care. Put it on Friday night. Really. I mean, Amazon, all well and good, but hi, Mickey. Great to have you back on. And yes, go back to NBC was a big network for MLB in the 70s and early 80s. When I first became a baseball fan, you know what? I have one word for you there, Eddie. Bingo. With the next couple exclamation points with it. Bring NBC back. They deserve it. I think that this is ultimately going to be the best move that happens for MLB. Bring NBC back and let ESPN do what they're going to do. They've done a really nice job, obviously, with the NHL, but with all due respect, NBC is a no-brainer. As we continue through the chat room, we'll continue and we'll put them all up. I can't guarantee I'll be able to answer all the questions, but we'll certainly address them there for those of you that are definitely watching it on YouTube, and you can replay it back, and I'll get as many up as I can. All right, well, we have a Detroit guy on here for a reason, so of course he's back permanently. It doesn't matter. So returning to the Detroit Tigers, got Jack Flaherty and Andrew Chafin. It's neat how they were able to get prospects in return in those respective deals, and now they get to be teammates with those prospects, right? George Eichhorn, Andrew Chafin, Jack Flaherty. So, George, take it from there. Oh, first of all, tell me what people in Detroit are talking about Andrew Chafin and Jack Flaherty.
Well, there's been more talk about Flaherty, obviously getting him back, a member, of course, of the LA Dodgers championship team. And although he did not have the best playoffs, and we all know that, but the fact of the matter that Scott Harris could get the man back and keep the shortstop Trey Sweeney was really a remarkable achievement by the new young president of the Tigers. Chafin, I don't know. I mean, he's bounced around. He's had some ups and downs. He's third time now with Detroit. We'll have to see what kind of stuff he still has down in Lakeland as they're warming up, getting prepared for the new season. You could bring back people once in a while, but sometimes it doesn't always work out the best way. But nothing ventured, nothing gained. I mean, Andrew's got some good pitches. He's got still some good arm in him, and I'm glad for that. But Flaherty, yeah, you got a number 2 big league starter now right behind Struble, and that's going to really help Detroit's chances. I firmly believe, because he's a really good pitcher, Flaherty, and he's still young too.
Okay, I'm going to go to Trent, and I'm going to leave this topic up here for the Yankees so that we address it immediately afterwards, because that'll be a great lead-in to what Eric's going to talk about. So we're going to leave it up, Candy. This is a good topic. This is the perfect place to slide it in. So what are your thoughts about these 2 reacquisitions?
Well, as I'm a Michigan kid, right? I like to see players come back. I think there's a resurgence in Motown. Pistons are coming. Obviously the Lions are coming and have arrived. So I think things are looking good. I mean, the Tigers making the playoffs. It's great to see people actually want to come back to Detroit. I think it matters. And it's not just the teams, it's the town. There's a good resurgence. There's a great energy going on right now in Detroit, and I think it matters. At the end of the day, though, I mean, like any team, man, the whole thing's about winning, right? Like, you got to win. And so however you do that, I like them going back to the well on the fact, like, they had a young player who's got a lot of talent. They know the potential's there. They'd love to see that through. And I believe that the team at the top believes they have the right coaches and the right mentors to bring this young kid along. And I think Flaherty's, icing on the cake. He's already a proven winner. And given what the kind of foundation they had last year, I think they're positioned to do some damage, and I think they'll get back in the playoffs.
Okay, Eric.
I mean, I like the move. I mean, Jack Flaherty was very good for them last year, and then the Tigers did a great job of really taking advantage of that value and dishing him to the Dodgers for Trey Sweeney, who was really good for them down the stretch. And the Tigers, we saw last year, they just went on an unbelievable surge in the second half, and they came within like Elaine Thomas home run away from taking on the Yankees in the ALCS. But I like Detroit with where they're heading. I still thought they could have added another bat or two to the lineup, but I think they think their young bats can take that next step this year. I still think it's wrong for them to still be banking on Spencer Torkelson at this point. And I know they tried for Bregman but didn't work out. But
yeah, we'll talk about Torkelson, Eric, a little bit later in the show, okay? Because that is something we're going to address, just so you know.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, personally, like the move. They get two guys back. Andrew Chafin. It really depends on what kind of Andrew Chafin are we getting. But because either the guy's terrific out of the pen, or he just loses command of the strike zone and he's walking guys left and right. But overall, I especially like the move for Flaherty. He did really well in Detroit. He's pitching in a pitcher-friendly ballpark. And Detroit, like people are saying, Detroit is right now the place to be for a lot of people.
Okay. Mark?
I think that was a brilliant move by them. They brought some veteran leadership back to the team after they got something worthwhile. It was almost like they had a deal. Unfortunately, I think it's almost like they had a deal under the table. But, you guys have all hit the nail on the head. This team really is on the rise and will be something to watch this year. They're definitely a contender. Eric started talking about Torkelson, and I'm looking forward to that because I have thoughts on that related to him. But they do have some young bats that they are counting on. I think they're going to build off of that mojo that they ended the season with, and especially the fact that they got knocked out of the playoffs. I think they're going to be hungry, and they put more pieces of the puzzle together with experience that will help them go forward. So that was an excellent pickup. I get Scooble's number one, but in so many ways, Flaherty can be your 1A.
All right, I'll put a ribbon on this topic. Here's what it reminds me of. Reminds me of when the Tigers acquired Kenny Rogers to mentor Justin Verlander, period. That's what I think about it. I think it's a brilliant move. Think about it. We'll leave it at that. I want to continue to keep the show rolling. So Kenny Rogers, Justin Verlander, Jack Flaherty, Tarek Skubal, you get the connection. I do. All right, I want to go back to a topic because this is going to be a lead into Eric's rant. And what we're going to do with your rant tonight, Eric, is you're going to fly solo on this one. A couple more things I want to get to. So you're on your own with what you have. So I'm going to go around the horn here with everybody. What is your 2025 World Series take, Mark?
Oh, come to me last.
All right, I will. Okay, Eric, go ahead.
I think that the Arizona Diamondbacks will upset the Dodgers in the playoffs, and with considering how weak the American League is, I think it'll be a repeat of 2001 World Series between the Diamondbacks and the Yankees. Hopefully, the Yankees come out on top this time.
Interesting. Okay, what are your thoughts, Trent?
Yeah, I like the Padres out of the West. I'd like to see the Dodgers falter a little bit. We'll see. Get a little of that ring shine, and they sit back on their heels and maybe fall too far out. But I'd like to see San Diego come up from the West. I don't know if they have enough to win it all, but I don't think the Yankees are going to be back. I think the Yankees are going to be strong, but I think they're going to stumble too this year. It'll be interesting to see who comes out of it, and I don't think it's going to come out of the East. I think it's going to be someone out of either the Central, in the American League, and maybe the West.
George?
Well, I'm still going to go with the Dodgers in the National League. I mean, they're just stacked. They're loaded for bear. In the American League, I went with Baltimore last year. I can't do that again. I'll go back to the Yankees. I'm going to see a rematch in the World Series, and the Yankees are going to win it all this time.
Okay, Mark, now I'm
glad
back.
I'm glad you learned.
Yeah, Trent took mine. I wanted to tell you the Padres. I do think that it's going to be a different season for them. I don't think they'll slip up like they did last year, especially when they have somebody down. I think they'll put their foot on their throat and finish it. And I do like the Yankees. I think the best thing the Yankees potentially did was get rid of Sosa, or not Sosa.
Soto.
We got Sammy Sosa in your head.
Huh?
We got Sammy Sosa in your head once.
Yeah, I do think the best thing they did was get rid of Juan Soto. I really do.
One letter off. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, well, my bedtime, fellas. That's all.
All right. I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you guys an interesting take on this one. Eric, I'm glad that the Diamondbacks beat the Yankees. I was an Arizona resident back then, so no doubt about it.
Me too.
I am. So, I mean, it was the Diamondbacks against the world. I'm not going to get into the 9/11 thing, although obviously I understand why the Yankees added a fan base there. But I'll tell you, the sleeper out of all this might be the New York Mets. Watch
No,
out for these guys. Well,
no.
I'm entitled to my opinion. Okay. I give everybody theirs. The Mets are intriguing. I didn't say they're the favorites to get there. I said they intrigue me. Keep in mind, I preface the words they intrigue me. But if I were a betting man, and I'm not, I go to the Dodgers and the Yankees to return. That's what I think, and that's where I'm at. Okay, Trent, I have no problem with you going east and west with the head. Okay, because that's what they call the First Amendment, freedom of speech. We don't have the FCC to deal with here today because the FCC never even dreamed about what we'd be doing today. With that said, now we're going to go to Eric's rant. Okay, Eric, New York Yankees need a third baseman. Tell me why.
I mean, DJ LeMahieu at this point, his body is arguably collapsing. Is obviously falling apart faster than the Mets can blow a game. The thing about it is, I just don't trust Oswaldo Cabrera full time as a full time player. I'm good with him as a utility player and kind of playing all around, kind of like he did last year, which I think is a real big thing to have, especially, injuries are going to happen and whatever. And having a guy like Cabrera, not full time, but a guy who can just fill in is going to be key, because I don't want to lose that. You don't want to lose that versatility. But LeMahieu is just he's done. I mean, I liked DJ when he came over to New York, and I liked him. I liked the move at the time when they signed him, but he's hurt. He's 36. I mean, I know the Yankees are are right now just waiting to see if insurance will cover the rest of his contract, because he is like just as injury prone as Anthony Rendon, obviously for significantly less money. But I just should be truthful. As much I'm not like, I wouldn't be opposed to getting Nolan Arenado, but I'm not like, I wouldn't be the biggest fan of it, just because the Yankees you'd be eating a lot of money off that contract. But I'd rather a guy who can be out there. I mean, George says it best. The best of ability sometimes is availability, and DJ has not been available for the last 4 or 5 years. And you can't, a guy who's been hurt for that long, you can't expect him to all of a sudden be healthy for an entire season. It very rarely ever happens. I mean, Aaron Judge has had his injury problems over the years, but that's different though. I mean, they're both not the same player. And DJ LeMahieu, he's 36 at this point. He's on the wrong end of it. He's past his prime. I don't know exactly what he has left. I mean, yeah, he was hurt quite a bit last year, but when he was on the field, he really wasn't that impressive. I'd feel more comfortable if they went out and got like a third baseman. It doesn't have to be a star, a third baseman who can kind of fill the position to hold it down. And if he's not working out, go to the trade deadline. You'll find plenty of third basemen available, believe me. And
go ahead, finish.
And you can do it that way. But man, I cannot trust the idea of DJ LeMahieu or Oswaldo Cabrera being the everyday third baseman for the Yankees.
All right, I'm the only one that's going to have input on this one because I want to keep it moving. Number one, I had the opportunity to interview DJ LeMahieu in the Cactus League in Colorado. Did some unbelievable things in Denver. Certainly thought he could have had a better career in New York. I'm not going to belabor that. But I want everybody on this panel to keep one thing in mind, and only one thing in mind. We're still talking spring training. There's going to be more moves made. If you don't believe me, go back to 1984. How did that work out? Tigers made a trade. John Walkenfuss, I believe, was it John Walkenfuss? I'm trying to remember the particular. We got Dave Bregman came back and Willie Hernandez. How did that work out? So let's not go out there and realize that you're seeing the finished product on there yet. There will be made trades by the end of spring training. Some of them could be impactful trades. Glad you brought those things up there. But again, we're only talking March 3rd, and opening day, I don't think it's until for another 3 weeks out. So there's a lot more trades to be had. And that's why baseball show continues every week. So we can address all the updates as well. We'll leave it at that. The subject that everybody wants to talk about will be the one we're going to address at the moment. Should the Tigers move on from Spencer Torkelson after this season? No, Mark, you're not going last. Now you're going first because you let that cat out of the bag of this one.
I don't know. I'm indecisive. I mean, from my perspective, you just don't know sometimes. That's why I like to hear some input often. Like
Well,
I
don't
like to
worry.
hear.
If you need to, I'll give you the last word on it. I'm just trying to go to you directly so you have a preliminary input. I have no problem with you coming on last, but when you tip me that you had some thoughts on it, that's why I opted to go with you first.
Well, here's my thing though. Like, I'd love to see the Pirates get something out of Henry Davis, but he's lost on the Pirates. I wouldn't mind seeing a swap there.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind seeing a swap there. That's why I'm so indecisive on it, because I think the quality of play from those guys is pretty similar, but Torkelson's had a lot more opportunity at the big league level.
Fair enough. Eric.
I mean, 2023, I thought that was the year where we were going to see Spencer Torkelson kind of come into his own. 31 home runs, 94 RBI. That's a pretty damn good year if you're asking me. But last year, the guy fell on his face. The Tigers went as far as the Tigers had to send him down because he was so lost up there.
Yeah.
And he came back and did okay, not great, but he did a little bit better, but not enough for me to say this is the franchise's first baseman. No, I just can't believe in the guy anymore. I mean, you have to cut it. You have to cut your losses. What you have to cut it what it is, which is he is a first round bust. The guy strikes out more often than not. He hasn't been able to get that form that he had in 2023 when he slugged 31 home runs and drove in 94. And he hasn't taken that step, which is to become the star that the Tigers drafted him to be. And, I think if he doesn't do it this year, which he very well could, back up against the wall, we've seen players do it all the time where all of a sudden they explode onto the scene, kind of like how Willie Adames did from 2021 onward. But here's the thing, I don't have a whole lot of faith in him. I think I could see him being non-tendered after this year, and he'll be running around. Him and his agent will be running around, trying to get a minor league deal for him, where a team can see if he does well in spring training, he can make it out of camp, because he is a first round pick, and that tends to give you some opportunities in this league, and a team will think that it can try and unlock something. But right now, I think that I just do not see it with Spencer Torkelson. He's a bust. His 2023 right now is just a 1-year wonder. And I'm having a hard time with him trying to put it together again.
Well, not only your first round pick, he's the number one pick in the draft. Okay, yeah. Trent.
Go ahead, Barber.
No, I was just going to say, this is why it made me so indecisive, because Torkelson's the number one, had some numbers, did really well. Davis was 1-1 with super high expectation. He was number two. I was going to say he was a 1-1 with super high expectations. And sometimes you need that change of venue, that change of scenery to, but Torkelson proved he could do it at least that 1 year. Where did he go wrong after that? I just think trading two guys of that caliber might be a better thing than letting them flounder where they are.
Fair enough. Okay, Trent.
I think it's going to be a short leash. He obviously had an off year in 2024. I think he's coming into his age, like 25. You start getting your maturity. You start figuring it out. You've kind of been there and done it. He knows the routines now. He knows the expected ballparks in the cities he's going to be in. He's played some big level baseball. Arizona State's a big program. And so,
right.
He's been under the limelight for a while, so he's not new to that. I think he probably had to get back to some fundamentals and get back to the basics after a very poor year following his 23 showing, which really had him on the rise. So, it's a kind of make it or break it year for the guy. Right. And I love the idea that, and I don't think they'll wait on him. I think they'll do exactly what the Barbers say. If they don't get what they need out of him in production in the first 60 days, they'll be packaging those guys up and moving them and getting a high quality guy, because everybody needs a high quality guy at first base in this league.
Yeah.
You know what? Go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, cut it out with the first overall pick nonsense, because here's the thing though, Brian Taylor, who when the Yankees drafted him number 1 overall, had a lot was at the time a flamethrower, and that was something that you didn't really find in the league at the time. Punched somebody at a bar and was never the same again. The Yankees were okay with letting him go.
You know what? I'm going to piggyback off of Trent. George, you have the last word on this topic. Fair enough. Make or break year is exactly what it is. If you could get value at him at the trade deadline, you do it. If you do re-sign him, you re-sign him for a one-year deal with a club option. That's what you do to see what he's going to do. I don't see them sending him down to the minors at this point. If you haven't figured out if he can contribute, that's one thing. But I'll reiterate what I said. Make or break year, no doubt about it. And the Tigers still have time to acquire a quality third baseman. Really do. So, with that said, Brian Pettit, glad to have you on here. I got to get the kids to bed at school tomorrow. And so we appreciate you being on here. Eric, you're going to have something you're going to answer by yourself in a moment. Just want to get to George on the last word. We're going to keep it rolling with the chat. One more topic to get to.
I think in one sense, I think the Tigers have already given up on him. And then the acquisition of Torres from the Yankees, and he's going to play second. And they moved Colt Keith to first base and told Spencer, you're not assured of a job on the roster. I agree with you, though, Scott. Spring training is long. There's wheeling and dealing that goes on. Would a breath of fresh air help him? Possibly. But I also saw good chemistry. You know, he's in that same age group as Riley Green, and you got Parker Meadows, and you got Kerry Carpenter. You got these young guys that are really, really Rogers, the catcher. These guys have formed this camaraderie and this special desire to get Detroit and keep Detroit in the thick of things in the division race and in the pennant race. So I don't think that's something that we have to just take lightly. There is a reason. There's got to be reasons why he dropped off. I don't know the reasons. I don't know if it's mental. I don't know if there's something personal going on in his life. We don't know. The writers, nobody's talking about that stuff. So we can't go down that road. All I know is the man still has a lot of talent. Does he strike out too much? Yes. Is he not showing it consistently? Yes. I agree with you, Cats. He hasn't. But that wonderful half-plus year he had in 2023 showed a young ball player with a lot of talent.
Okay. You know what? This question is strictly for Eric. We're going to keep it there. Eric, do you think Kerry Carpenter can develop into a star in Detroit? Eric only.
Absolutely. I mean, as long as he's had a kind of a hard time staying healthy, but when he's out there, man, when he's out there though, in like 87 games, he had 18 home runs. If that doesn't scream star when the guy's healthy, I don't know what does. It's going to be built around Kerry Carpenter. He's been a bright spot on some pretty dark Detroit Tigers teams, and in the playoffs last year, especially against the Cleveland Guardians, the guy was an absolute menace. I think we're the best is yet to come for him, but I think he can be a star, and I think he's going to. I think this year he's finally going to break out. I'm putting my mouth where the money is.
All right, I'm just going to say this with Eddie Prather, and I'm only going to just comment on this. Is there a sport that's harder to judge first rounders in MLB? I would say you make a great case. Great minds think alike. I'm sure a lot of the guys might agree with it, but we'll just bring that up another time unless somebody has a quick response to that.
NFL.
Okay. Just give me a league.
Yeah, each league has its own challenges. Hockey does too. Those kids are very green, very young. But baseball is tough. I agree. Baseball, I would number one for the. Yep.
All right, back to the chat room. Is Roki Sasaki still going to be the weapon after giving up a homer to Kyle Teal? Make it quick for anybody that wants to contribute. We have one more topic I want to get to, but we're going to keep rolling, and then we'll roll with.
Hey, Yankee Jazz. Hey, Yankee Jazz. Love that you're a Yankee fan, but don't judge the man in spring training. You knew he was a bit of a project coming over from Japan. We can't don't put a label on him yet before he goes out there and faces superstars like Bobby Witt Jr. And to answer your question, yes, Bobby Witt Jr. is an MVP caliber player. Name another guy who can score on a double from first base. Nobody else can.
There you go. Yankees, we got you addressed on both ends. Final topic of the night, unless something comes my way, and I'll continue to bring them up as we go along. Moving through, we have a lot of great stuff tonight, making sure that there's no shortage of great topics. And keep in mind, as we continue during the course of baseball season, there's no doubt in my mind we'll have plenty of storyline. Final topic of the night is actually a feel-good story. Two-time MLB All-Star Dimitri Young has been assigned to as a new manager. Get this, of the Northern Colorado Owls, and he played 13 years in the major. George, we'll lead off with you on this one. What do you thought about Dimitri Young becoming a manager?
Well, you never know, huh? You never know. I mean, he had sort of an up and down career with the Tigers, but I always liked him. Good guy in the clubhouse, awesome personality. There's a unique talent to becoming a manager, and there's a reason why you like to work your way up in that position most times. There are rare exceptions, but yeah, I'm happy for him. I really am. I think that he's got that in his blood. He's got some ability there, and teaching young kids, and also keeping them on the even keel. I'm all for it. Like I said, I really liked him as a ball player. He was fun guy to have in Detroit.
I've never heard of the Northern Colorado Owls, but I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to follow them. All right, Eric, we'll turn to you next since you had your hand up.
Oh, I mean, happy for him. Always, decent player. Still had a 13-year career, which that's above average right there. I mean, this game is hard. I mean, the players deal with it every single day. The joke, but good for him. Happy that he's kind of he's going to be giving back to the game in that way. I remember when I was in college, the coach at my college played for the Minnesota Twins for a little while. But I'm happy that Dimitri Young's getting this opportunity to really give back to the game.
Okay, Trent.
Yep, I think Dimitri will do a great job. A lot of ball players want to go back into management and give back, and I think it's what continues the hyper learning. They all got trained under a bunch of great leaders, great coaches. They themselves had to go put it into practice. And now they got to test their skills, and can they pass that along to somebody else? I always like to say, I'll know you know it when you can teach it. And Dimitri Young is going to go try to teach great baseball up to these young kids in Northern Colorado, the Owls, and his ability to do that might get him to another level.
Okay, Mark, you can say something. I want to go back to the Yankees. We've got one more question. We're going to make sure we get up before he heads to bed. Go ahead.
All I was going to say is it's great when players who formerly played at the Major League Baseball level, or they have the desire to go back and give back to the league. And he was a pretty solid player. And he brings a lot to the table from that perspective, too. He's probably got a lot of guys that are willing to help him out in some capacity with these young guys, and that's a big plus. So I love the fact that he's giving back. I'm sure his salary's not astronomical like other people's salaries are today, but I just think it's a great thing when former players go ahead and give back to organizations as Major League Baseball players, not just their own organization they played for.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to go to everybody on this panel will agree we're all pulling for Dimitri Young. Yankees #1, Jazz 13. First of all, before I even get to his comment, if that Jazz 13 stands for Jazz Chisholm, I worked with Jazz the last few years at Miami Marlins. And I am so happy that Jazz Chisholm is up in New York, because he's going to certainly there's nothing not to like about Jazz. All right, last question we'll put up there before he heads to bed, and I think everybody will have no problem answering this one. Could the Guardians make a playoff run? Okay, we'll start with you, Mark.
Yeah, they definitely can make a playoff run. They obviously got themselves there last year and just fell again. Here's another team that just fell short. They're playing with a marginal salary cap. They've got some great young talent that they develop and bring through. They might have to go out and get a couple of more things to help enhance that team to get them over the top. But it's interesting to watch a team like the Guardians do that kind of stuff, and they just have a system in place that essentially makes them a productive team. So I'm excited to see if they can win that division again.
Eric?
I mean, it was like passing the torch from Terry Francona to Stephen Vogt couldn't have been more seamless. I would, no matter what pitcher the Guardians are kind of like the Rays a little bit. I wouldn't hedge a bet against them, because I'm telling you, with how they do things there, every single season, I know, Scott, we've talked about this over the years, they always have a fighting chance with the players that they bring in over there. And they got the three horsemen in that bullpen with Emmanuel Clase, who, to be truthful, I thought deserved a little more respect in the Cy Young voting, because his numbers were similar to that of Eric Gagne. And they have Cade Smith, who would be a closer on any other team. They got Hunter Gaddis. They added Paul Sewald. They've proven they can hit. They also, I don't think we're showing them enough love at first base, despite them losing Josh Naylor. They have obviously they got Carlos Santana coming back, but they also have Jose Ramirez, and I'm telling you, do not try and sneak a fastball past that guy, because he's going to make you pay. And and the Guardians, man, Stephen Vogt, now with him managing, that team has a fighting chance every year.
All right, Clarky.
Well, for young Yankee Jazz 13, I love a young lad 13 jumping in. I hope baseball does get better for you, man. Like, I hope it's better to watch. As a longtime Tribe guy, there it is, the '97 series. I mean, I got to go to 2 World Series in Cleveland. It's a great town. It's so supportive. They love their team, and the system is set for success. Got to stay healthy. They feel like they're 1 or 2 players away from making a deep run. Like, either they got to get one, either at the playoff, at the deadline, or they got to develop it. Maybe someone's going to step up and be that player, but it feels like they're 1 or 2 guys short from going deep. Now, do I think they'll be back? I think they're going to be right there for like that wild card, possibly a division winner, and they're going to get that first round maybe. But I don't think a deep run, a playoff run, a long playoff run is probably in their cards with what they have in the moment.
George?
Well, of course, they defeated the Tigers in the second round, so Detroit fans would want to wish them not so good luck this year. But I agree with what you guys have said. I mean, they're a model franchise in the sense that they do it their way. I'm glad you mentioned, Eric, about Tampa Bay. Very similar, but they do it their way. The Guardians never hold them back, never count them out, as they say. But that's a tough division with Detroit and obviously Kansas City and Minnesota. And, of course, the White Sox are pulling up the rear. But all these teams look to improve this year. I really do. But, yeah, I would never count Cleveland out. They've had really outstanding managers, and they've done a great job. You're right, though. I agree with you, Trent. They are like Detroit's maybe 3 or 4 ball players away. Cleveland is at least 2 away.
All right, I'll only say this on this topic. Number 1, you're in the MLB Central, and that division's been good for a while. So, you have the MLB Central. Guardians are playing well as a small market team. I will also say this. I will extend these shows as long as I have when I got guys like Brian Pettit, Eddie Prather, and Yankees number 1, Jazz 13 contributing some outstanding topics in the chat room. This is what this show is all about. I could come up with whatever I'm going to come up with. Well, when I have these individuals in the chat room asking intelligent questions, that's great. Also, special shout out to Cyberuski comes up with a sauna topic. Who would have thought that? But Cyberuski, one of the most underrated topics on the planet. That's why this makes a great sense. All right, Eric.
And don't forget, too, with the Guardians, they brought back Shane Bieber, which it wasn't that long ago. That guy was striking out everyone left and right. And they also brought in John Means, we saw him in Baltimore he was kind of on some really bad Baltimore teams, but he's another guy when healthy is also a good pitcher. And I'm curious to see what they do with Slade Ciccone, because they got him for Josh Naylor, which on paper you think it's laughable, but I would not spit at the Cleveland Guardians pitching lab, because I'm telling you, they know how to make some pitchers out there. And if Tristan McKenzie can bounce back to his rookie form, oh man, they're going to that rotation, the pitching staff overall is going to be tough.
All right, let me go back to Yankees number 1, Jazz. I know it's gotten ready to go. You're very welcome, especially when you contribute like this. Please go out there, Yankees, Jazz, and try to get us some more subscribers. We really appreciate it as intelligent as you are, it's a big bonus, but you were outstanding tonight, as well as everybody that I mentioned. Please give us a hand, Yankees. We'll also be on this show 8 o'clock Monday nights. Monday Night Baseball, our version of it. And I'm just proud to be surrounded by an incredible supporting cast that I have tonight. This makes this so much fun. It's unreal. With that said, as we get ready to wrap this bad boy up, okay, we're going to let Candy Embley for one more station break. We'll go around the horn. Everybody can let everybody know where they stand for. All right, Candy, one more station break. Candy? Well, I know she'll get on, but before she does come on, okay, Barbara, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
Well, you can find us on all social media at OSP with MM or Original Sports Podcast. We do our show Tuesday nights live, then we re-air it on Thursday nights, or I should say it drops on Thursdays, whether it's audio or video. The Original Sports Podcast and our recent show, Terrible Talk, is all about the Pittsburgh Steelers. It is on Thursday nights. You can also find us on Roku Tuesday nights, 7 to 8, and on Roku Sunday nights for Terrible Talk from 6 to 7.
Okay, Eric, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
You can follow me on my Twitter X account at Sports Team News, or you can check out my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I write about all things baseball. And if you think I hate your team, yes, I probably hate your team.
Okay, go ahead, Trent.
Trent M. Clark. You can find me on all the socials there or Leadershipity. I am the author of Leading Winning Teams with Wiley Publishing. And hey, please buy the book. Support our podcast, Winners Find a Way. We are on all the major networks, going live every Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. And we drop our weekly episode every Friday morning.
Okay, George, let everybody know how they get a hold of you. And yes, Yankees, we appreciate you being here every Monday night after school. Sounds like a plan. All right, go ahead, George.
Glad to be back tonight. Hey, listen, you can get a hold of me at gicorn@yahoo.com and on Instagram and also on Facebook under my name. Find me here on this show Monday nights. My articles appear locally here in a publication called Detroit Monitor. But on the website, it's I'll be one of the contributing writers. You'll find me there. And at the end of my column, there's a link to my book, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, where we chronicle over 70, 80, 90 years of broadcasting in Detroit, where Scott and I all got started. So good to be back.
All right, well, glad everybody back. I'll give everybody the Cliff Notes version. How you can go ahead. First of all, if you look at the bottom of our screen, which has been running all night anyhow, you're going to find out that, there you go, Candy's back on. Okay, go ahead, Candy. Come on in and finish it off.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morgan Roth, and the foreword was written by George Icorn. Talks about their 40-plus years in the business and how it has changed, old school media versus new school media. Get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website where there's a link to our merchandise store as well. It's www.southfloridatribune.com. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. Monday nights is baseball. Tuesday nights is football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, you just never know what we're going to be talking about. Although we do sprinkle in a little hockey on Thursday nights now and again, especially during the season here. If you would like to advertise, you can call Scott. Or if you want to sponsor a show, 954-304-4941. If you have show ideas or want to be a guest, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Again, check out our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Back to
All right, Candy, why don't you put George's book up for a moment as we wrap up the show. Monday nights, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. We talk baseball, 108 Stitches Baseball Talks, the show that I've had a long time. I'm just so glad I have an incredible supporting cast with this group. And, of course, now we're building up the chat as well. Follow it. We'll put 2 books up, Leading Winning Teams, How Teamwork, Motivation, and Strategy Achieve Big League Success by Trent Clark, who did an outstanding job on Thursday's edition of the Sports Exchange Talking Hockey. I realize he's more than a one-trick pony with what he pulled off on Thursday. Great stuff. Okay, we got George's up there. I'm in there with Muhammad Ali, and Jimmy Connors. Never been a big tennis guy, but I'll tell you what, South Florida hosted some tennis tournaments. I was fortunate enough to go out there and get that shot, and George was nice enough to put it in the book.
Yeah.
I don't remember where I did with that picture, but thanks to Icorn, it's in there. Done well. Great stuff. Unbelievable. So that'll put a that's it for this edition of 108 Inches Baseball Talk. So on behalf of Candy Ebling behind the scenes, the barber, Mark Meriday, Trent Clark, George Icorn, and Eric Katz, I want to thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next Monday night. Have a great week, and we will definitely keep you posted on the doings in baseball. If you thought we had a lot tonight, guess what? Come back next Monday, and we'll be loaded. Take care, everybody. Enjoy your week. See you next week.